Sharon, ShareAlike, yeah!
Hi guys, I'm Sharon ShareAlike, and today's tutorial is all about how to make some wings that'll open up on their own on stage. It's going to be a really exciting effect, and I think the crowd's going to love it. So take a look at how I made these. Let's get started. Here are some of the materials that we'll be using to make the skeletal system of our wings. You can see on the left, it's a reflector that goes in your driveway. It's made out of fiberglass and has a reflector top. The fiberglass rod is 1/4 of an inch round. The next thing that we're going to use is called a Ferrule Stop. And as you can see, down at the bottom, we'll be using the figure 8 looking one. And it's 1/4 of an inch as well, and that way it can fit over the top of the 1/4 inch rod that is on that reflector. The next thing we'll be using is some Nylon Washers. They're a large washer. I got all this at the hardware store. The next thing we'll be using is a screw post with screw. You can see what that looks like there. It's just kind of like a long, hollow rod that has threads inside of it, and then another threaded bolt goes into it. And then we'll also be using some elastic. I'm not sure what size yet. It's going to depend on how much strength it takes to open our wings. All right, let's get started. The first thing that we're going to do is put a drill bit into our drill that is a little bit larger than our screw post with screw. Then we're going to take our reflector, and I just use my white eyeliner pencil, and I'm going to make a dot right in the center of the reflector. Now I'm going to carefully drill through the center. I don't want to push too hard because you can break this plastic. Just line it right up onto the dot that you made and start drilling. Be careful that you don't drill through your fingers. Now we'll clean that off a little bit. Forgot to remove the label. And now we have a hole that's all the way through. And this way, our screw post can fit through the hole. And it can move freely. I'm going to do this to 4 different reflectors. So I drilled holes through all 4 of my reflectors, and I put them together with the plastic washer in between each one. And this is a 2-inch screw post that I'm sliding through. And now I'll just put the very last one on. Line it up. And then I just put the top in. And then I just tighten this down with the screwdriver. Depending on how thick your reflectors are, you may have to get a different length of screw post. You don't want to put too much pressure on the reflectors because then they'll break. But I lucked out and I can tighten this down and it doesn't put too much pressure. And now you can see that these can open up. And this is the first step to making the skeletal system to our wings. Now I'm going to attach another reflector. I'm going to attach this reflector to the very bottom reflector. And I'm going to use those ferrules that we talked about. On this one, I'm going to put 2 ferrules on. I'm going to slide it onto both of the rods. And for right now, I'm going to position this about a foot away from the other reflectors. And I'm going to slide this rod all the way up. And then this other ferrule, we'll just put it about a foot down. I'm not exactly sure where these are going to end up at yet because I want to do some testing. But for right now, that's where I'm going to put them. And then I think what I'll do is I'll just secure them with some duct tape. Later on, we're going to do what's called crimping the ferrules, and that will make them permanent. But for now, I want to be able to move them around. Now for the second part, I'm going to put another reflector on. I know this is getting a little bit complicated, but it'll make sense later on. So now I'm going to put the second reflector on the very top one. But this time, I'm going to put the reflector on upside down. So I'm just going to put this all the way down, and I'm going to put 2 ferrules, maybe 3 ferrules on this one. And I'm sliding it on. And then I'm going to position these about a foot apart from each other. And I'm going to tape these in place as well. Okay, now we're going to put our elastic in. I know this is a little hard to comprehend right now, but it'll all start making sense. This is the center that we started with, where we put the 4 reflectors together. Then we ferruled on this piece here, and then we ferruled on this piece here. This is on the bottom reflector, and this one is on the top reflector. And I got lucky with these reflectors because they have a little hole in them. So I'm going to be threading the elastic through that hole all the way down to the other reflector that I ferruled on. And then that's going to help give us some tension to open our wings. So let's do that now. We're just going to thread this through the hole. And this is a 3/4 inch elastic. But it might be later that I'm going to have to make this a stronger elastic. I'm not really sure how much it's going to take to open the wings. I plan on decorating these with feathers and some fabric. So it might take some more tension to open them. I'm just threading this elastic through the hole. You'll also have to play with the length of your elastic, because you're testing out that tension. Now I'm just going to tie this elastic both ends together. So this kind of gives me a double strength because there's 2 pieces of elastic now. I'm not tying this very tight because once again I may have to change the tension. But what we've got going on now is this elastic is stretching. And when I let go of it, it can open up on its own. And then I'll have these other 2 spines that can open up as well. And this is going to start making the skeleton frame for my wings. Okay, now I want to start figuring out what I'm going to use to attach the wings to my back. So I bought this 5-gallon bucket, and I measured across here 8 inches. And then I also have a straight line here at the bottom. And I'm going to cut across here and all the way up here and across here and all the way back down. And I'm going to see if I can use that as part of the back piece to hold my wings on. Okay, I managed to get this all cut out. You can see there's the bottom of the bucket. I also rounded off these edges a little bit. I don't know, it just seems smart, so maybe it won't like poke into my back. And then I'm going to take the part that's rounded and the bottom of the bucket, and that would be the part on the top. So here's the back of the dress form, and that's kind of how it would work. And then the wings would come off of here. The reason why I left that part of the bottom of the bucket was because if I don't, then it's kind of flimsy, see? And with that bottom on it, it stays stronger. And I think that's going to come in handy when I get my wings attached to that, because there's going to be quite a bit of pressure on them. And also when I'm like walking forward, the wings are going to want to blow back, so that's going to help to kind of keep them in place. Now I have to figure out how am I going to get this to stay on the back. So what I thought of was getting some aluminum. This is a piece of 1/8 inch thick, 3/4 inch wide aluminum that I got from the hardware store. And it's 4 feet long. So what I'm going to do is cut this in half and start forming it around the shoulder to act like a harness. I took that aluminum and I cut it in half. I did it with a little handsaw. And then I kind of positioned it on my bucket where I thought it should be. It was kind of in a little bit of a V shape, both pieces. See that V? And then I decided where to put some holes and where I wanted my wings to be, because these are what the wings are going to attach to. Then I screwed some bolts through the metal. I drilled holes in it. That was a little tough. You got to put it down on like a piece of 2x4 or something, because when you're drilling it, when the drill bit goes through, you don't want to damage your floor. But anyway, so I drilled through the aluminum in the 2 spots, and then I marked it on the bucket where I wanted that to be, and then drilled holes in the bucket. And then I started to bend the aluminum so that it would fit onto the mannequin. I also fitted this onto my own body because I'm not really the same shape as this mannequin, so I want to make sure it fits me good. And then what I did was I took 3 of those plastic washers, and I took one of those reflectors and I popped the blue part out. They have these little blue lenses in them. And I was able to just pop that out of this particular model. And then I found this at the hardware store. It's a cap, a test cap for PVC pipe, like plumbing. And it was a 3-inch cap, and it happens to fit inside of here really well, so that this can move on it. So then I drilled a hole into that PVC cap, and I put these 3 plastic washers behind it, and then I just put that on that bolt right there. And what the washers do is they keep it out just far enough away from the bucket so that it can move smoothly without rubbing against the bucket. So now our next step is going to be figuring out how we're going to have these come down far enough but then stop. Okay, here's what I ended up doing. I cut another piece out of the bucket and I bolted it on to the other bucket, right underneath the bottom of the bucket. Remember that part? And then I put some grommets in that bucket. You can get grommets at your fabric store or at your craft store. They come in a little kit, and it has all the tools and everything that you need to put the grommet in, and it has instructions and all that. Then what I did was I put a cord through the grommet and tied it onto the rod, the 1/4 inch fiberglass rod from our reflector. So now what happens is this will be in a closed position when I start my number, and then when I'm ready, it will open up the wings like that. Okay, I made a few minor changes since you saw this last. One thing that I did was I removed one of the reflectors, so now it's only 3 reflectors. Another thing that I did was I connected the elastic through this loop and into this grommet. Before I had it in here and it wasn't working very well. I also shortened all the reflectors just to make the wings a little bit lighter. And I added this structural piece. It goes all the way up and down, and it's an piece of aluminum, and then I just bolted it on in 3 places. So now let's take a look and see how these are going to work. I'm going to try to get out of the way here so you can see. When we pull the wings down into their closed position, they'll fold up like this. And then when it's time for them to open up, I'll just let them go and they'll open on their own like that. So now I think what I'm going to do is paint everything. I think I'm going to paint it all black and maybe add some silver touches. And then I'm going to start decorating with fabric and feathers. That's the fun part. I wanted to show you how to crimp these ferrules down. All you need is a concrete floor, and we're going to use a hammer. And all we're going to do, I put a little piece of fabric down just to protect it on the back side. And then we're just going to hammer it down, hammer it together. Making sure to hammer on both sides. And you'll be able to tell when you get it tight enough because it won't be able to move anymore. There, see, now they can't move at all anymore. I wanted to give you one more look at these now that I got them painted. I took the elastic off while I painted it. I also smashed all those ferrules down so they're permanent now. I decided to keep that aluminum piece that's going up the center. If I don't use it, I'll cut it off later, but I was thinking maybe I could put like a head on it or something. That might be kind of cool. I'm figuring this out as I go. I actually think they're starting to look pretty good. I decided that I wanted to put some spandex on my wings, so I laid the wings out on 4-way stretch black spandex, and I cut the shape that I wanted. And then I sewed in some little pockets or seams that could slide up onto the rods. I also put 4 ties on this side, and that way once I got them slid onto the rods, then I could pull it over and tie it so that it wouldn't be able to come off. The other thing I did was I added a cord, and this is a little hard to see because it's black, but it goes all the way out here. I tied it here around the rod. I sewed it through the fabric and tied it. Then right here, it goes through the fabric behind the rod. I sewed that through with a needle so that it can slide back and forth. And then it goes across here and goes into our eyelet that we put in our bucket. And then on the end of it, I tied a metal ring. And my plan is that when I'm wearing these, this is the back of the wings, but when I'm wearing them on my shoulders, I'll be able to reach back and grab this ring. And then I can pull, and that closes up the wings. And then when I'm ready to have the wings open, I can just let go of that string and they'll open. I really think that's going to be a fun effect. I wanted to add some feathers to the wings. So I found this Silly Winks foam sheets at the craft store. And it's 1/4 inch thick, and it's flexible. but it goes back to its shape. And what I did was I cut shapes of it out that I wanted. I just used my cutting tool on the table. And then I sewed elastic on it where I wanted the feathers to attach. And what I did was I just sewed a line like that, like every inch. And I used a heavy-duty needle, like maybe one for denim or leather. The first time I had a smaller needle in and it busted when it was trying to go through there. And then I have these feathers. These are pheasant feathers. I got them in black, and then this I think was more like just a natural color. These are about 32 inches, 30 to 32 inches. And I travel a lot when I perform, so I like it when I can remove feathers out of costumes because it makes it easier for travel. So the reason I put this elastic on is so that the feathers can just slide in like this. And the feathers are so lightweight that they'll stay in place. So then I can just put feathers all the way along here. And it gives you a nice effect. And then what I'm doing is I'm just hot gluing this to those reflectors that were on the wings. So I put hot glue on the reflector and then just stick this on. So there's one more thing that I wanted to show you. You remember I talked about how I might decide to make a head? I wasn't sure. Well, I decided to make one, and I think it's going to work. I took that aluminum piece, that rod that was going up the center of the wings, and I bent it so that it'll curve over my head. And then I made this kind of strange looking head and attached it to it. I started out by getting a large egg that I got at the craft store, and I spray painted it black. And then I used that black foam and I started making shapes and hot gluing it to the egg. And then if you see this reflective chrome looking stuff, I found these plastic platters at the party store. They're lightweight plastic, and I just cut the center out and I cut shapes and just hot glued that to that black foam. And then right here on the eye, I just glued a piece of fabric on. Hi guys, so I'm backstage at this huge show I'm doing. There's 1,000 people out there getting ready to watch, and I'm gonna try out the wings, so wish me luck. I hope they work. Fingers crossed. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that performance. I know I had a great time. And maybe this tutorial will help you make some of your own wings. If you liked it, please share it with some of your friends. I will see you again real soon. Take care.
Sharon, ShareAlike, yeah!
Don't forget to subscribe. Bye, guys.